Love isn't always simple, and passion often comes at a price. Welcome to Intrigue Romance, where secrets, betrayal, and forbidden desires collide. Tonight, we take you into a story you won't forget, where love is never what it seems. It started out like any other Saturday night. The sound of shuffling cards, laughter, and clinking glasses echoed from the living room as my stepdad, David, hosted his regular poker night with his friends. It was a tradition he had kept up since marrying my mom, Linda, 3 years ago. I had grown used to these nights, and at 21, I was more of an observer of family life than an active participant. The house had always been full of life when David was around. He was the kind of man who could light up a room with his humor and charm. But tonight, something felt different. The laughter from the living room sounded forced, the energy off. By the time I heard the front door close behind the last of his friends, the house was eerily quiet. Curiosity got the better of me, and I headed downstairs. The scene that greeted me stopped me in my tracks. The coffee table was littered with empty beer bottles and poker chips. The faint smell of whiskey hung in the air. David was slouched on the couch, his head tilted back, staring at the ceiling with glassy eyes. "David," I called softly, hesitant to interrupt. He turned his head toward me, blinking as if trying to focus. "Oh, Grace," he mumbled, his voice slurred. "What are you doing up?" "I could ask you the same thing," I replied, stepping into the room. "Are you okay?" He let out a bitter laugh, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "Defines okay," he muttered, his words laced with sarcasm. I sat down in the armchair across from him, unsure of what to say. David had always been the picture of stability in our family. Seeing him like this, vulnerable and defeated, was unsettling. "Do you want to talk about it?" I asked gently, keeping my tone neutral. At first, he shook his head, but after a long pause, the words started to spill out. He talked about the pressure he felt at work, the expectations he placed on himself as a husband and stepfather, and the fear that he wasn't living up to anyone's standards. "I've been trying so hard to keep everything together," he admitted, his voice cracking. "But some days, it just feels like it's all falling apart." Hearing him speak so openly caught me off guard. David had always seemed so confident, so in control. I never imagined he carried such heavy burdens. "You've been doing your best," I said softly. "And that's all anyone can ask of you. You don't have to be perfect, David. No one expects that from you." He looked at me, his eyes filled with a mix of shame and gratitude. "I didn't want you or your mom to see me like this," he said. "I thought I could handle it on my own." "But you don't have to handle it alone," I replied. "That's what family is for. Mom and I care about you, and we want to help. But you have to let us in." David nodded slowly, as if my words were finally sinking in. "You're right, Grace," he said. "I've been so focused on what I thought I needed to do that I forgot what really matters." "Then start now," I said, handing him a glass of water from the table.
"Talk to Mom.
"Let her know how you're feeling. She'll understand. We both will." He took the water with a faint smile. "Thanks, Grace. I don't say it enough, but I'm really lucky to have you in my life." The next morning, David apologized to Mom and me over breakfast. He opened up about the stress he had been under and promised to make changes. True to his word, he started seeing a therapist, cut back on drinking, and made a conscious effort to prioritize his mental health. Over the following weeks, the tension in our household began to ease. David and I grew closer as he started including me in conversations and asking about my life. It was like we had finally broken down the invisible wall that had kept us at a distance. That night changed everything. It wasn't just about David admitting his struggles. It was about realizing that even the strongest people need support sometimes. And in helping him, I learned something important too. Family isn't about perfection. It's about showing up for each other, even on the hardest days. This experience brought us closer as a family, and for that, I'll always be grateful.